24th, 2017 meeting of the Wythe County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We have Father Bernie Ramirez from St. Mary's Catholic Church here to do our invocation. Would everybody please stand and remain standing for our pledge?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, may your goodness and love be present among us today. Come, bless our gathering with unity, hope, and vision. Come, be with us, inspire us, and lead us in our time together. Come, speak your words of life into our being. We pray that you will deepen our comprehension, broaden our thinking, and transform our understanding in this meeting. For you are our wise counselor, our perfect teacher, and our faithful friend. We ask this in the name of Jesus.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, welcome everybody this morning. I know we had a lot of rain yesterday afternoon, and hope everybody and their property and stuff bared the storms we had yesterday, and we've got a lot of rain. We move right on into our agenda. This morning we have a public hearing and I'll read the notice, Wythe County, Virginia, public notice of public hearing, fiscal year 2018 budget amendment. Notice is hereby given pursuant to section 15.2-2507 of the Code of Virginia and amendments thereto, that Wythe County Board of Supervisors intend to consider an amendment to increase the fiscal year 18 budget in amount of $2,500,000 for additional capital improvement funding, project funding for the Appalachian Regional Exposition Center. This amount, which is proposed to come from county reserve funds, will be used for building construction and related costs. The public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, October the 24th, 2017 at 9:05 a.m. or as soon as, therefore, in the boardroom of the Wythe County Administration Building, 340 South 6th Street, Wythe, Virginia, to hear public comments on the proposed budget amendments. I want to remind everyone speaking, you'll have a 3-minute time limit. Mr. Willis will be calling your name and keeping the time. So we'll open the public hearing.
All right. First up, Mr. Mark Benke.
Mark Benke, 130 Mule Drive, Wytheville, Virginia. Thank you for letting me speak. Lee Atwater, an American politician, said perception is reality. I think that's very fitting and appropriate since we are here in a political arena right now. And my perception is that this project stinks worse than a pig farm. You are wanting to pull $2.5 million out of reserve to fund a project that is already 1 year over budget on time. It's supposed to have been completed already. Engineer's estimate. What was their engineer's estimate? What was our budget? This whole thing just reeks that something's not right about it. Especially when you're willing to do $2.5 million out of reserves for this project, but you're not doing anything. You won't adequately fund the school project to do schools. So the perception in my mind is you guys really don't care about your employees, the teachers, and the work environment that they work in, and you don't care about the students and the environment that they learn in to better themselves, to better this community. You want to showcase farm equipment and farm animals and concerts that may or may not come with public funds and money that originally this project was not supposed to encompass public funds. So the perception out there is this thing's all out of whack in my mind. And I don't think it's the right thing to do. I think education is where we need to put the investment. The whole field of dreams, build it if they build it and they will come, attitude's got to stop. Lot 1, Lot 24, Lot 30, and now the Ag Expo. We've built it and nothing's come yet. You're going to have a, what, $30,000 a month mortgage on the Ag Expo when you're done? Is that about right? So you got to have $30,000 a month in revenue plus more revenue to do operations, maintenance, other expenses. You know, so how much are you really going to need to bring in on a monthly basis? Can we actually do that? That's just what I got to say. So perception is reality, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banky.
Nate Montgomery, and he'll also be speaking for Jen Odie.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and submit her. Did all of you receive her email? She emailed you a letter. She wrote this letter. She's a teacher at Spiller Elementary School. Essentially, she wrote a letter expressing why she does not support this amendment, and she delivered it to the principal over there. The principal and the vice principal also read through the letter and signed it, along with 40 other teachers at Spiller Elementary School. So I guess in a sense, I'm here on her behalf to represent the teachers at Spiller Elementary School, 40 of whom do not approve of this, and unfortunately, due to the timing of this meeting, could not be here today. So I will turn this in to the chairman or to the clerk.
Turned it to the clerk.
Okay. So that will be for Ms. Odie. So, Mrs. Odie. And this will be for me. Nate Montgomery, 385 East Reservoir Street. I attended the very first public hearing regarding this exposition center and addressed the feasibility study with no renderings, no drawings whatsoever of this building, and no site analysis. At the first meeting, I stood here and I urged this board to use caution and do your due diligence in moving forward with this project, for without any plans, there's no way to know what this building may be used for or what it might cost. All of this went unheeded, and a $5 million burden was placed on the shoulders of the Wythe County taxpayer. At this time, the board finally got around to hiring a firm to draw up a set of plans. Unfortunately, the reality of this project began to materialize, and lo and behold, the building and site prep were going to be far more expensive than had been previously guessed at. Site work began, and the lack of preparation on this board's part once again became a financial issue when improper grade work turned into fines. But still onward you go. Bids are requested for construction, and once more we find that the work being requested is not in line with the budget of the project. That brings us up to last week. With the $2.7 million shortfall to this still not quite thought-through project, the board decided to host a public forum on a Tuesday morning when most of the men and women of this county are at work. Now, I know that you have already decided what you will do, and I fully understand that this meeting is little more than political theater. So, gentlemen, I do not intend to disappoint you. Who do you think you are to sit in front of this community, many of you elected on conservative principles of small government and fiscal conservatism, and burden this county with such a special interest, good old boy feeding trough giveaway as this expo center? You should be ashamed of yourselves. You will sit in those chairs and tell our sheriff's department that they should go write tickets for badly needed body cameras that serve to make both the citizens of this community and the officers safer, and then turn around and rob this reserve fund to finance this debacle. You'll sit in those chairs and tell the educators and the children of Wythe County that they're not worth you investing in a state-of-the-art facility for their education, and then turn around and let taxpayer money literally wash down the culverts underneath 81 due to ignorance in construction and project management. The best thing this board can do to benefit the taxpayers of Wythe County would be finish properly grading that lot and begin marketing it to a private developer, similar to the way that Progress Park was built and is now being marketed. We do not need to continue on this path with the ludicrous notion that simply because the work has begun, this lot has to become what is surely to be another doomed expo center like the one 2 hours away in Lexington and 2 hours the other way in McMinnville, Tennessee. Cut your losses and return the rest of the bond money. Now, I have no faith that this will be the direction that this particular board chooses. None of the incoming candidates for East or Blacklick support this project, so I'm certain that today you will go ahead and vote to continue down the same path that we've been stumbling along through the entirety of this travesty. I can only hope that the next Board of Supervisors election will bring even more young, mindful candidates that truly represent all men, women, and children of Wythe County. I hope what we're seeing here today is the last dying gasp of the backroom good old boy politics in Wythe County. Unfortunately, we will still be paying the bill for its memorial long after it's dead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Linda Meyer.
Not at this time, gentlemen, thank you.
Alan Wilder.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bear, board members, thank you for leading. I appreciate that. Leading's difficult. Leading requires foresight and vision, and I personally appreciate the investment and interest that you have in economic development for our citizens. While I don't fully understand how the Apex Center will operate or generate the resources for our citizens, I actually trust that you do understand how that will work. And I hope that from years from now, we'll all be able to look back and be very glad that you've had the vision to create this new avenue of vitality for our county. I certainly also trust that you see our public school system as a vital component of economic development. 4,000 children, 700 employees, 13 schools, and of course, the hopes and dreams of so many families for a better future for their children. You know that we've already poured considerable capital improvement funds into our 3 attendance zones in the last 25 years. In the eastern zone, we've spent about $32 million. In the western zone, $23 million. In the central zone, $8.5 million. And I'm proud as a board member representing the citizens of West Wytheville on this Wythe County School Board where our schools are academically right now. Out of 132 divisions in the state, we are ranked number 10. And just as an aside, the superintendent reported to you several weeks ago that number, and I was honestly disappointed that no one congratulated him. That was completely overlooked. So thank you to the hard work of our students, teachers, and administrators, and also your budgetary support. We couldn't do it without your support, so thank you. You know that we're currently creating plans to renovate George Wythe High School. The school board takes the same long-term visionary approach to public education that this board takes to economic development. We believe that these two county priorities are complementary and essential. I am concerned that the Apex project cost overruns will diminish and delay our public school capital improvements. You've said on numerous occasions that there is a tight relationship between what the county can borrow and the reserves it must keep. For every dollar you borrow, there's a certain number of dollars that you must keep in reserve. Reducing county reserves by $2.5 million, I hope, will not sour our ability to do a quality renovation project at George Wythe High School. I would be disappointed to hear next year that construction funds were unavailable because our county reserves could not support adequate funding. 6 of our schools are already overdue for renovation by 1 to 3 decades. I trust that you will not allow the Apex Center to drain needed capital reserves that can be used to accelerate the renovation and replacement of declining school conditions. Finally, I was driving up the mountain from Galax yesterday in that rainstorm. I couldn't see a thing. It was frightening and scary to try to pick out what was up ahead, you know. I wanted to tap the brakes. I just wonder if this isn't a time to tap the brakes in regard to the Apex Center, because we're not quite sure what lies ahead. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder.
Mr. George Bailey.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, ma'am. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak in front of you today. It's a bad time of day for most of the people I know that want to be here, so thank you for at least letting the opportunity to let me speak. I don't know about any of you all, but I haven't touched $2.5 million in my lifetime. And as a county, we need to be wise in what we're doing with the money that we have. Nate spoke already about how he thinks it is an unwise investment, and me and myself will agree with the fact that we have policemen in this county that are not only underpaid, but that don't have the things that they need to be efficient and do the things that they need to do, and they do a wonderful job with what they have. Our fire and rescue departments are also in the county, have problems, whether it be vehicles and trucks or things that aren't functional, that need to be functional. Our schools need to be rebuilt. They need to be, if you're not going to rebuild them and you're going to renovate them, then they need to be renovated in the proper way. I still have kids that are in school here. I would best to say that most of you don't have children who are in the school system here anymore. And two of mine have left the school system, but I still have two that are in school here. So they require those things to continue to grow in their education. So my question is this the best way to use $2.5 million in reserves? Is this the proper way to use $2.5 million in reserves? I love a good soccer field. I coach soccer, and I love soccer. We travel over to Bluefield to play, and they have a great soccer venue, and I love it. But do we need to put that kind of money in a soccer venue in this county? That also puts on concerts, and like I've said before, we have had experience, or I've had experience in bringing in concerts into the area. The cost that goes into that is far above the cost that we're going to make back in return in this area. And I don't know how people are going to get off the exit to get to this venue. So there are a lot of things. Are we going to end up having a shell building like we have at Fort Chiswell Outlet Mall? We need to figure out if this is a wise investment, or do we cut our losses and do what we have right now and let it be for that. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all we have is sign up for the public hearing. I will ask if anybody else would like to speak concerning the public hearing. Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Next item, I skipped citizens' time because I wanted to get the public hearing out. Citizens' time, would anybody like to speak during citizens' time? Hearing none, we'll close citizens' time. Minutes of the previous meeting of October the 10th, 2017. I entertain a motion to approve. I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any amendments or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Next item is payment of invoices. Entertain a motion to pay the invoices.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Any invoice any board member would like to pull out or discuss? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item on the agenda is old business. Mr. Byer?
Yes, the first item under the old business is the Apex bids, and following the public hearing, if the board wishes to take action upon the amendment and appropriation to the budget.
I'll make a motion that we amend and appropriate $2.5 million from the reserves for the Apex project.
I have a second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. I open for it for discussion.
Okay, I'll just tell you flat out, I'm very much against that. I think that we made a mistake having this public hearing in the daytime. I would think that we should continue it until the nighttime meeting. Right now, we've taken out of reserves $1.3 million for the land. That has come out of reserves. We have borrowed $5 million, which takes it up to $6.3 million. Now we're looking at taking another $2.5 million out of reserve. That brings it up to $8.8 million. I know $1 million of that comes from the Tobacco Commission, so that means that our outlay from taxpayer money is $7.8 million. And that also means that for $8.8 million, we get no barns, we get no soccer fields, we get no paved parking lot, we get no sign, which I think has been estimated to cost approximately $250,000. It does not make good fiscal sense, and I don't think that we should act on it until we continue the public hearing at a nighttime meeting to give people an opportunity to come. I have had several people contact me to express their frustration with this thing being held at 9 o'clock in the morning when people are at work. If we truly want to hear what the public has to say, then we need to have a public hearing at a time that the public can come.
Okay, any other comments?
I would just say I agree with Gary. I think we need the public hearing to continue to a night meeting.
Any other comments? Well, I want to say I take a kind of offense that you don't think this board supports Wythe County Public Schools or the past boards. Since 2000, Wythe County, this board and previous boards, has put in over $40 million in the Wythe County Public Schools. Our pay for teachers, I mean, we increased our budget just about every year. We increased it $100,000 this year. And I support Wythe County Public Schools. And I mean, we've been on the path of renovating Wythe County Public Schools for a long time, and we'll continue to renovate Wythe County Public Schools. All of our tax money, every bill the real estate tax, every bill the personal property tax, plus about $3 to $4 million go to Wythe County Public Schools. A lot of people in the county don't realize that. We run the county on the rest of the taxes we collect through sales tax and other utility tax. But every bit of your real estate tax and every bit of your personal property tax and $3 or $4 million above that goes to Wythe County Public Schools. We also, as this board, every year has looked at the schools and worked with the school board. This year we appropriated $10 million again for the renovation of George Wythe High School. And this board, I have two sons that come through Wythe County schools. My oldest son has a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, a master's degree in systems engineering, is now at the Navy War College continuing his education. I'm thankful to Wythe County Public Schools for what they've done for my family. But we also have to look at the rest of the county. We have to grow the county. We can't just sit back and say, well, we're here. Past boards have done a wonderful job as far as infrastructure in this county. Water, sewer, electricity. We have 2 lines, dedicated lines coming into Progress Park, well really 3, and a new one on the way from West Virginia into Progress Park. We have a data center. Appalachian has certified the park as a data center. But we also have other things in this county to move forward to do along with the schools. I don't disagree with that. But we still have to look for the future to grow the county and to grow the revenue of this county. Or, kids our school enrollment is dropping. We need to somehow generate revenue in the county. And, my opinion, I think we need this exposition center. And I've heard from people, I got an email last night supporting it. We had a 10 up at Heritage Day in Max Meadows. Everybody that come through there supported the Expo Center. It's, you know, there's 29,000, almost 30,000 people in this county. And a lot of them do support the Expo Center.
And Mr. Reeves, that's my point. If people support the Expo Center, then let's have a public hearing at night that they can come and say so. And people, if they don't support it, we have it at night so that they can come and say so.
Any more comments?
Question.
Yes.
Call the question.
Okay, been a call for the question. I'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
This is to take $2.5 million out of reserve?
Yes.
Okay, absolutely no.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
And the chair votes yes. Motion passes 5-2.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to award the contract to the low bidder. Follow through with contract, get the job started.
Okay,
I
yes.
have put a handout in front of you. I've also previously emailed this to the board. Has the recommendation from the committee with the deductions for the,
I don't have a copy of that statement in mind.
You need the amount, Stephen.
the revised amount is $5,979,750.
The new, that's the new bid from RGM is,
That's the, after the value engineering negotiations by the building committee, that is their recommendation.
okay, you want to amend your motion?
I don't think it needs amending. I just didn't state the amount that value engineering yielded a reduction of $682,400, and that gives us a new contract amount of $5,979,750.
Okay, do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
If we award this at that $2.5 million, if we expect for it to be repaid, that's going to add between $140,000 and $160,000 to the yearly debt service. Although it's not debt service, but it would be paying ourselves back because it's paying the taxpayers back. So that would take our, what we would have to put back into our budget on a yearly basis of between $450,000 and $480,000. So,
Mr. Helton, that's not entirely the case.
well, I don't know.
Well,
I've looked at the numbers.
where would you put the numbers, continued support from the Tobacco Commission and other grants? They'll go to replace that money too.
There's, I've counted the money in for the Tobacco Commission, and unless the Tobacco Commission, sends us a letter that says that, over the next, so many years, they're going to give $1 million a year, we can't count on that.
No, you can project gloom and doom, but you can't accept
Well,
the possibilities.
This is the first time since I've been on the board that we have made budgetary decisions without a budget, without plans, without anything. We borrowed the money up front. We didn't have anything, to go on, and now we're reaping the results of that. We said, okay, $5 million. Well, nothing came in, at $5 million, so we just keep adding and adding and adding. My point is that, if you want to get out of a hole, as the old saying says, you have to stop digging. and we continue to dig.
I believe we owe it to the public to tell the truth. We
I think I am.
We did have a budget. We've always had a budget. Mr. Barrett, you know the budget from the A&E firm. We had a budget from Mr. Vaughn's office, so it's not true to say we never had a budget.
We didn't have a budget when we borrowed the money.
Yes, we did.
We had a preliminary budget that said $12 million.
That was Mr. Vaughn's budget. What was, do you remember the A&E budget?
The building cost from the A&E firm for the smaller building was $6.3 million.
That was from their conception to build the small building. Okay, but it's just not right to say we've never had a budget. There's
Okay,
been
well, then we-
planning meetings. There's been 3 years of prep go into this thing, and because of state delays, we say the project's late. We had a new program by the state called Stormwater Management, and if you folks hadn't built anything, you got it in your future that the state will be involved in whatever you're trying to do with stormwater management. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments? Hear none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
No.
Aye.
No.
And the chair votes aye. Motion to award RGM the contract approved by 5-2 vote. Okay, under old business, anything else, Mr. Barr?
Mr. Chairman, we do have an item of old business to discuss. We do have a gentleman here to go into closed session. However, if you would like to continue with the rest of the meeting and then come to that later, we can do that if you'd like to do that now.
Let's move on and go through our reports for the sheriff, and I don't see Ms. Gwynn here, but Sheriff? Morning, Sheriff.
I got just a few things. Our October trash totals were, they did 61 miles, 475 bags of trash, 250 pounds of trash. That brings your total since May, when you started the full-time guy, up to 510 miles, 3,700 bags of trash, 110,910 pounds of trash.
That's a lot of trash.
It's a lot of trash. And we got some new grants since we last met. We received a continuation of the body cam grant in the amount of $12,056, and that has a cash match of 15% on our part at $1,808, which we're going to plan on taking out of the police activity fund. We also received a naloxone grant for $10,000, which requires no cash match, and a defibrillator grant from Wythe to put a defibrillator in all the police cars in the amount of $44,000 with no cash match. And lastly, we applied again this year for a FEMA grant to get radios. And our grant, there were 66 grant awards given. And our peer review score among those was 12th. And we were not chosen to accept the grant. And we have got emails that everybody could. Here's how that's divided up.
It's not divided.
That's right. They had about, what was that, $5.5 million? About $5.5 million. And that's where it all went. Red dots are the, you got one.
Here, Keith, I got two.
Two. Yeah. That's where all the money went. We have contacted the people associated with the grants, and they don't even return our emails or phone calls. We just want to know why our score was so high and we didn't receive any money. Because we asked for $150,000 so we could replace all the in-car radios with digital radios and have new digital portables. And it's becoming a safety issue. We know one of the downfalls of our radio system on the sheriff's office part is we're using such antiquated equipment that we're not getting out some places that we would get out if it was digital. So we've got to go digital sometime. The town's already done it, the 911 center's already done it. And so it's going to become a budget issue for everybody here, for me this year, because it's the second year in a row it got denied. And I wish the board would, I plan on sending a letter to Senator Carrico and Sugarline and Delegate Campbell and ask if they'd look into it for me. But I think, and I'm going to send that either way, but I would hope that maybe the board could do the same. And we'll apply for it again next year. But when
Is
you're...
this a federal or state FEMA?
It's,
Federal.
the money comes from federal to the state, and then they go from there.
Then the state, who in the state makes the decision?
They went through a multi-phase process on that, and I know we had a local group that looked at it, and from there on, you'd have to ask Anthony. So they had a local group look at it, and then BDM in Richmond looked at it, and between leaving here from Tazewell and going to Richmond, we had high hopes that we were going to get this thing this year, and we didn't, and we don't understand why we did.
Mr. Barr, if you'll get with the sheriff and do a resolution and bring it to from the next board meeting, where we can pass a resolution and send it to Senator Carrico and Delegate Campbell and
Senator Sugarline.
Senator Sugarline.
And Sheriff, I don't know if you did or not, but in your correspondence, I think that I'd suggest you include that. That's pretty powerful.
Anthony
Yeah.
went to the meeting this year after the grants last year, and he took that to the meeting with him and gave it to the person that was conducted the meeting, and she said, well, I had no idea it was divided so unevenly, and that's how she corrected it. So, so thank you, guys.
You want a resolution or a letter with a thing attached for the board to adopt a letter, which way would you like to do?
Let's do a letter instead of a resolution. And I know we put in money in the budget this year, to do some of the towers and equipment upgrades on the towers and stuff.
That helps us out a little bit, but it's not going to help us out much until we go
Radios.
digital. And we can't just go part digital and then part analog. We got to go either one way or another, and digital's the way we need to go.
Okay.
What's the cost to go big?
It's going to cost us about $150,000, including the installs.
So what's a round number? What do you think a round number would be? With how much, is that
That's
including
including the installs. Mhm. That's including the install. If I could ask, are we still contemplating hiring somebody to do tower work, check the towers, maintain the radios, do the installs? For multiple?
We're going to work on the towers as we're going forward. We have not looked.
I was talking about having a person.
Not a person.
No, okay.
Let me ask you, going digital, does that include the rescue squad, third part?
I thought they're already digital.
All right? I didn't think so.
Mr. Chairman,
They,
Sheriff, could you get a firm budget? We'll soon be coming up on budget time.
right.
And come back with a real number and say, I need this money to make a safety issue to get the things done.
Already got it.
The grants are not going to happen. And milking that tree is getting harder all the time.
Well, We've already got that. We compiled that information broken down line by line in our budget for that FEMA grant. So I've already got that information. I can show you.
Well, I recommend you bring it back a budget, and let's put a priority budget.
I'll make sure I have it there. Anything? Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Sheriff, your two other grants are on the budget committee for approval on your
Yes.
oxyline and body cameras. They'll be approved. Right, thank you.
I don't see Ms. Gwen or Ms. Barker, and we'll go into the Water Committee report.
All right, the Water Committee met on October 17, 2017, and makes the following recommendations. The first one is to amend and appropriate $286,000 to line item 9050-470200 for the Ricky Road water line extension. Funding for this is an approved rural development loan.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, Mr. Vaughn has received information from the finance director and has requested that object code be changed from 470200 to 470431.
Mr. Horny, you amend your motion from committee?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have a second on the amendment?
So moved.
Okay. Any questions or more discussion, any explanations? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Hausman, Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item.
The second one is to accept Hurt and Profit's proposal for engineering services for the Fort Chiswell wastewater treatment plant improvements. Total fees for the services provided is $17,100.
Okay, again, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion? Questions?
What are we getting for $17,000?
This is the Headworks project that has been under discussion for some time, and we had the open-ended engineering proposals come in, and this is a proposal to have them, and it's to redo the Headworks project and also look at a possible septic receiving location there as well.
Okay, that is part of it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And the chair votes aye. Next item.
Third and final thing, I believe, is to accept Cardinal's proposal for engineering services for the Max Meadows Bridge water line. Total fee for services provided is $4,990.
Okay, again, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Anything else from the Water Committee?
I believe that's it, unless Mr. Barrett has anything that I don't know of.
Okay, next, Budget Committee.
Mr. Chairman, the Budget Committee met yesterday, actually, October 23rd, and made the following 5 recommendations. First is to proceed with the VACO VML financing agreement for the George Wythe High School renovation project financing.
Okay, again, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Next item.
Second is to proceed with the VACO VML financing agreement for refinancing the 2005 bond series for the New River Regional Water Authority water system improvements.
Okay, again, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Mr. Barr, you want to do an explanation on how
Yeah,
much?
basically, the interest rates on this bond issuance from 2005 are beginning to step up at a level that it's I believe 8 years left on this, estimated savings of about $25,000 a year by refinancing this bond issuance.
Okay. Does that raise any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Next item.
Mr. Chairman, the third item is to accept the 2018 Litter Prevention 7 Recycling Program grant in the amount of $9,280.
Okay, again, come from the committee, it doesn't need a second. Any discussion or questions?
Stephen, how do we apply that money? What do we use it for?
That has always been a grant that we've applied for, and it's been budgeted each year. That's why it's not amended and appropriated. It's used for salaries for litter control officers.
That's the guy that drives the truck, or does it go to Allen?
It goes to Arlen on the litter control officer.
So it doesn't go to help pay for running the truck to pick up the trash? Okay.
Any more questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Next item.
The fourth item, Mr. Chairman, is to accept the Burn Jag naloxone grant in the amount of $10,000 and to amend and appropriate the like amount.
Again, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Anything else?
Last item, Mr. Chairman. To accept the Burn Jag body worn camera grant in the amount of $10,247 with matching PAF funds of $1,808 and to amend and appropriate like amount.
Okay, again, coming from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Before we go into the county administrator report, I'm going to back up on the agenda and go into our closed meeting. Entertain a motion to go in closed session.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Mr. Willis?
Will you state the reason we're going to close the meeting?
I was going to have Mr. Willis.
I'm coming with that one. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors convene a closed meeting to discuss the following as permitted by Virginia Code 2.2, 3711A7, consultation with legal counsel.
Okay, now do I have a second? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now in closed session. Everybody got their mics on? Okay, entertain a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are now out of closed session. Mr. Willis, you want to read the certification?
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2, 3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies. And only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
I have a second on certifying the,
Second.
any discussion? Hearing none, do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Okay, now we'll move back into our agenda. County Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item that you have on the county administrator's report is just a report on the Virginia Juvenile Community Crime Control Act, just indicating that the funds were expended correctly.
Hold on a second.
Somebody
Steve.
knocking on the back door.
I've had people knock on that door, they told them to go.
Leads credence to the need for the sign, doesn't
The
it?
sign's gonna be up.
Thank you for ascertaining the alarm at the door.
You what? What I thought was, I hope somebody's on the
Okay, now, Stephen, you want to continue?
Yeah, basically, the first one is just a report of the financial certification form for the appropriate expenditure of the state funds. Does not require any action, just providing it for your information.
Okay, next one.
Second item is for your information, just the VACO report, or preliminary legislative report. Mr. Reeves and I have discussed a few items that we'd like to put into our senators and delegates' hands for this year. One been talking about the referendum on cigarette tax to be put into this area. Also looking at some possible legislation on some of this machinery and tools tax rebates that we talked about, where they file it with us and then 4 or 5 years later come back and request a rebate on those taxes with interest, and the interest penalties add up. That's an item we may look at adding there also.
Don't mind them, coming back and asking for, the overpayment in taxes, but the tack on that 6%, I think it's 6%, 10% interest over 3 or 4 years is a lot of money. And it shouldn't be allowed, and, I think we could get legislation passed to prevent that from happening. And also, on the referendum on the cigarette tax, and then on the emissions tax for the Expo Center, Washington County had one passed last year in the General Assembly, but and they don't have anything built; they just have an area. So that's the 3 things that I was wanting to ask the board if they wanted me to move forward with Senator Carrico and Delegate Campbell in proposing them in this upcoming General Assembly. Is everybody okay with that? Okay. Stephen, I asked you yesterday, kind of look, and I guess I can go back and find the Washington County code for they had passed last year. It'll be under Senator Carrico's agenda package.
It's basically on the backside of the Pinnacle, but in Virginia.
Yeah.
All right, will do. And the last item is just the electronic meetings policy that I had put on the previous agenda. If you all would, in order to be able to conduct meetings by phone, want to adopt that policy, we would need to do so.
I don't know if anybody else was in any of the ethics meetings and stuff that VACO had, and this was discussed in one of their meetings and went into great detail as far as communicating electronically. And this is something that's come up just recently. It's just now. We've got the technology and stuff that we can Skype or FaceTime through the internet and be somewhere, but it's only in the case of an emergency. So
I'll make the motion, we adopt this Wythe County electronic meetings policy.
have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions about the policy?
Yeah, Stephen, I have one question. Especially in committee meetings or in a board meeting, if one of us is late when it starts, then when you get to the meeting, can you become part of the meeting?
Yes.
Are you saying you want to call in on the way?
No, I said when you get to the meeting, you just come in and take your seat.
Yes, yeah, just like we do.
So if you had a quorum to start a
Yes.
board meeting
You can come
and you
in.
get here, okay.
Well, if you couldn't do that, Joe, I'd never be in a board meeting.
Well, you cut it pretty close, don't you? But that was because of your ear problem. You got that under control now.
No, the only thing this changes, like if you were in California, or you and it had emergency, or you was out of town or out of state, and there was an important issue that needed to come up to the board, and you wanted to participate in that meeting, you could do so by via Facebook, Skype, phone, or some kind of electronic media to do so. And it's only 2 times in a calendar year.
And is that 2 times in the statute that what they recommended?
Yes.
Because-
Two meetings or 25% of the meetings of the public body per member each calendar year. That's by the code.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hear none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. So adopted.
Mr. Chairman, I would now recommend adopting the electronic meeting automatic approval policy. And that basically, we have to have an approval policy to go with our policy, and it basically states individual participation from a remote location shall be improved unless participation would violate the policy of the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And what that is, basically, with the policy, every time we had a situation, we would have to vote at each meeting to say, okay, at this meeting, we understand Mr. Reeves is going to call in from California. I make a motion, we allow Mr. Reeves to vote in from California, get a second and approve. This is just saying the automatic policy is that is approved for the electronic meetings unless there is a challenge to it or a question to it. That way, you don't have to go through that each time.
I move to adopt the electronic meeting automatic approval policy.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Hear none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Anything else, Stephen?
I guess, Mr. Chairman, the only other item that I have is just for discussion purposes to come up. It has been mentioned before, you all have voted to award the contract and move forward on the Apex Center today. Previously, there was discussion, is there an interest in having a groundbreaking ceremony there or just proceeding with the contract and keep going?
In my opinion, we need to have a groundbreaking ceremony, but I'll leave that up to the majority of the board. I think we need to get it out there, and I think it'll be a positive thing.
I think it has some positive effect when we go back to the Tobacco Commission for their next installment, that you've documented something actually starting. You got equipment on site. Hopefully, some work's going on.
And I think we need to have a representative, either Senator Kerry, go there at the groundbreaking.
Well, I think they all ought to be invited, not only them, but
Yeah.
Moorfield, who is being supported from Tazewell County. And I realize it doesn't make any sense, but Blaine County is represented by different people. I would expand those invites to the elected, like to their board and to their senator who happens to be from Russell County. But the surrounding, make it at least send them an invitation, written invitation. And probably more important than having them, we need to invite another newspaper to cover it. Get the Bristol Herald down here to cover it, and get Southwest Distress from Pulaski, and Southwest Times covers the eastern end of the county. So we're not getting a lot of help from our local tabloids, so I think you ought to invite some news outlets to it.
Secretary of Agriculture is very supporting Secretary of
Commerce.
yes, he was a real supporter of it. I don't know if you want to even go all the way up and invite the governor, but can.
All right, so proceed with the groundbreaking.
Does anybody have a problem with it?
Are you serious?
Who do you want on the list, Gary?
All right, if we're moving forward, weather is of the essence, and time is quick. I mean, obviously, the contractor is going to be starting up there immediately, but we can do it on the upper side of the grass area up there in the process. We need time to get invitations and stuff out, but I mean, do we want to go as early as next Friday, November 3rd, or the Friday after that is the earliest?
I'd give it at least 2 weeks. Wouldn't y'all, at least a 2 week or 3 weeks?
Let me ask you a procedural question. How long is it gonna take you to get the contract ready to go?
Contract ready to go?
You got the state form.
Well, with the action you all took today, we will issue them the notice of award, be drafted up today to go to them. They'll have to provide us with their bonds and things, and Scott will review. The forms are sitting there. Once Scott has reviewed those items and they're in place, then we would be signing off on put those numbers in there and signing off on the contract.
All right, now bring us back to relation to the event we're talking about. How soon do you intend to put that other stone down that we're gonna put down?
As soon as it's dry enough to put it down out there, I've already told Bill to have the guys out there putting it down.
Okay, Bill, if the contractor wanted to perimeter the building to keep that clean so they can go to work, there's no problem for them to put that same stone all the way around the building, and if they want to, in their laydown area. Because they got word back from A&S that the building could possibly be here the first week in December. So we got to get concrete in the ground or the building's going to sit there. And this won't hold up work whenever you want to schedule groundbreaking.
No, I mean.
There actually needs to be some ground broke for groundbreaking.
There'd be stuff already done. This is,
Where are we at on the lane marking the corners of the building?
they marked them, followed up with them on that.
Why haven't that been done?
Again on Monday and heard back, so it'll get it.
I'll call Jeff directly today and ask him.
I mean, it's been a month and a half since we asked that to be done.
All right, so, 2 weeks out then would be Friday, November 10th. Is that a holiday? That is a holiday.
That's Veterans Day.
Yeah.
Thursday, November 9th.
What's the next week look like?
That's
Snow
mean, it-
flurries,
20th.
What?
snow flurries and wind.
And I just said Friday, I don't know, I just assumed Friday might be a Friday morning or Friday afternoon might be a good time to get some of the people from Richmond down here and it'd be free to back up. But with Thursday, with the Friday being a holiday, it'd be difficult getting the Richmond people probably down here on Thursday night.
Let's do it the following Friday,
Friday 20th,
7.
I'm sorry.
17th.
20 more days, get that.
I'm looking at October.
Well, that shouldn't tie up any of the construction. They can still go ahead and start digging the footers and stuff.
Okay.
It's not going to
This
tie
is
up.
just, I mean, this is gonna be a ceremonial groundbreaking.
Yep.
The ground's broken already, but have a tent like we had at, lot 20 groundbreaking, that, all right. We will aim for Friday, November 17th.
Is that all you have, Mr. Bear?
That is all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Farling, you have anything?
I do not.
Okay, moving into the supervisors, Blacklick District.
The only thing for me is, of course, I'll be going off the board December 31st, so there are some boards I'll be going off of, just so that you all know. Yeah, of course, I'll be going off New River Regional Water. I'll be going off of CRIFA. I'm going to resign from Mountain Camp. And also for Mount Rogers, this is why I'd like to request, we're in the process of seeking a new executive director, and I'm on that search committee. And what I would like to request is if I could stay on the board either through December the 31st, if we find an executive director, or if it takes a little longer than that, so that we can have some continuity. If it takes, to January or February to find an executive director, would it be okay for me to stay on that board until that time, and then my resignation would become effective?
I don't think anybody on the board is.
We'll look into it and make certain that, if it's one of those that it stays, you stay until it's filled by somebody else or whatever, we'll make sure.
Well, no, I'm not saying that.
That was what we said.
No. I mean, it's just that we had a meeting yesterday, and I, of course, I told them, and, they're trying to get, because we've interviewed some people, and, it looks like we're gonna be reopening, and so,
You can still resign after.
yeah, after that. So, but anyway, New River Regional Water and CRIFA and Mountain Cap, and then eventually, maybe by December 31st, Mount Rogers. And so I just wanted to let you all know so you could be thinking.
Okay. We will be doing orientations. When did you say we'd start?
Tentatively, we have it scheduled the first week of December. December 5th, 6th, and 7th, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday will be the dates we tentatively set for orientation.
I had to go 5 days.
5 days you went?
Yep.
I thought it was 3. Maybe 4 days.
Okay, West Whiffle. You have any? East Whiffle? Fort Chiswell.
Well, I'd like to congratulate VDOT again. They got the first phase of Room 4 is paved. I hadn't heard anything from my family over there since the pavement went down. So next year, Jeff says if they can get that funding from the high-density, high-traffic, that it'll put it all the way to the Carter's Ferry Road, which will get it to the mansion. And I've already had comments from people visiting the mansion this past weekend that it was greatly appreciated, that much of it. The hill is really great. They put down 4 inches of plank mix and 2 inches of wearing surface. So that's going to help them out maintenance a lot. It'll make the motor grader and the maintenance facilities available for a lot more road. They won't be going over there so much.
Trucking trucks went out which way?
They went out to Red Hall Road by agreement with Bottomley. He would stay off of that road if that would get it done quicker. They actually pulled the hill at Graham's Forge and come back up Lee Highway with them, most of them.
Anything else?
No, that's about it. Flood didn't do any damage.
Lead mines?
Only thing I had is roads. And I'll give you a guess which one was the first that gone.
Pope Road. I know they kind of had a mudslide on 94 last night. Is all that cleaned up
I
this
took my
morning?
skid steer down there and I pushed it out of the road for them. I'll see them on the field later.
I did hear that over the radio last night. There's several accidents on the interstate. I just hope it wasn't nothing too serious, but.
Dispatch made the call about 6:30 last night. I was over just checking on how everything was. I knew the town was closed for a bunch of roads, and of course, Wythe was flooded. Deputies were calling in, and residents were calling in. Basically, Chapman Road and East Lee Highway, a tremendous amount of gravel washed down on both of those from driveways and roads down through there, and they were calling out VDOT last night to work on those roads. I heard about the freeze, or the 94 towards freeze was the first thing that came in on the end, so.
You know, it was surprising because there's a picture on Facebook of King's produce parking lot, and it was halfway up on a pickup's doors in that parking lot. And the round church out on the hill, it kind of sits in a bowl, but it was water, looked like it was up in it. So, and there's a lot of water fell in a very short amount of time, and hope everything turned out all right for
I wish
everybody.
somebody to call them on Tank Road. Oh, they put a new culvert in, and it looked like you took a backhoe and dug a ditch across it this morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. So here I am up Tank Road at 7 o'clock in the morning and had to back out about a mile.
It's Beeville District.
Yeah,
You have anything else?
that's it.
I have nothing at large. They did pick up the trash on Chapman Road. I think they're doing a wonderful job. I just wish people would realize that, you know, they just wouldn't roll down their window and throw out everything. I mean, pieces of metal, and people that put trash bags on the back of their vehicles, and you know, they fall off and they just don't pay any attention. They just leave them and go on. I know they're bound to come back through there and see them. I wish they'd stop and pick them up. But anyway, moving on into new business, consent calendar. Have a motion to approve the consent
Make a
calendar.
motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Have a second.
Second.
Stephen, any discussion? Stephen, some of the under personnel, some of these raises and stuff, some says 100% comp board funded and some don't.
They were all comp board regrades on those. It should have said that on all of those, and a couple of them it did not, but they were comp board regrades that they received.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything, other questions for consent calendar? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Dr. Hausman? And the chair votes aye. Sunset Digital Communications.
Yes, sir. A gentleman called me from Sunset Digital Communications. His name slips me right now. He had requested to be on the agenda to come talk with us. This is the group that's, I guess, the BVU, Mr. Virginia Utility, and wanted to talk about some franchise agreements here. He and I played phone tag. I left him on the agenda in case he was able to show up, but obviously he did not make it. So I will work with him to schedule that in the future. And I'm trying to get the franchise agreements and what he's looking at already here, so Scott can take a look at those and we can look at what services they're wanting to provide. That'll come back up on the future agenda.
Whatever, if somebody can remember that other fiber optic company that said they were coming into Southwest, whatever happened to them?
They were from out deep southwest Virginia.
I can't remember their name. Did they ever, anything materialize out of that?
No, it did not. And I'll see if we can pull the name back up from them and see.
I mean, you know, a lot of areas in the county don't have but one choice, you know, and for competition and maybe lower prices and for people in the county, you know, it'd be nice to have more than one choice for internet service.
That's an area that legislation is continuing to work on. Some of this last mile broadband, some of this is getting broadband to areas. And as time allows, I'd like for us to start looking into some of that. I did receive some recent grant information. I shared it with citizens. I shared it with CenturyLink. Because it was private money, they could apply for it through the government, their partnership. We've got several areas. I've sent them down Red Holler Road, Major Graham intersection over in that area. There's some people there that they don't have a good option with CenturyLink. Citizens, it's not an option there. And we've got several localities, or several areas in our locality like that still need that last mile broadband. And we need to be working on trying to see with those partners how we can extend it into those areas. Any grants that are available for them that need us to say, we recommend or approve, we'll be glad to put our name on it.
How hard is it for you to generate a county map of where we have service?
I can We don't have anything we can do, but I can talk with the providers and see what they can provide us with a copy of their service areas.
Well, I've often wondered when you issue these franchises, why boards don't ask for comprehensive expansion of service. Yeah, that happened with cable, and then we didn't learn that lesson. And do you have the legal right when you get like Shintel? You give them a right to come in the county and provide service. Can you say over 5 years you shall improve or your area by 10%? Put some motivation in it when you give them the franchise that they will expand the service. And that might be something Scott would see, whether legislatures took that away from us or not, but it would sure make sense to me that when you give them a franchise to do business, there ought to be some kind of tail on that thing that they will maintain it and expand it.
Are there any areas in the county where, like CenturyLink or Shintel or whatever has got exclusive rights to that area and no other company can come in?
Stephen, I've always been told by Mr. Dalton that there's a tap down there in the central office at Max Meadows that they've never tapped to, that Shintel just doesn't use it because their equipment in there is so old. And all the places that I've lived in this country, we have the worst phone service because of that central office. There's some stuff in there that the Massengill family put in there. And they just don't upgrade the basic equipment to give you good phone service. It's not about the line, it's what happens in the central office, or the switching office, that's a switching office.
Okay. Mr. Burge, anything else to bring before the board at this time?
Don't believe so, Mr. Chairman.
Steve, if you're available, do we have a short construction meeting after this meeting? Okay. Does anybody else have anything to bring before the board at this time? Hearing none, I'll declare us adjourned.